Mazel tov. Shabbat shalom, everyone. It seems that every North American rabbi I know is speaking about the 92nd Streetwise annual State of World Jewry address. This week, the provocative address was presented by Bret Stephens, New York Times columnist and founder of the Jewish thought journal Sapir. He made the case that Jews should stop fighting anti-Semitism. His four major points are: 1, the fight against anti-Semitism is wasted breath. Anti-Semitism is a fact of history, a fact of the human condition. It will always exist, and therefore we should invest our efforts elsewhere. 2, that while anti-Semitism is an ugly and life-threatening illness, Jews should be able to see that being the object of the world's obsession is a kind of compliment. Twisted, but nevertheless a compliment. 3, that all the gifts that Jews may extend to worthy causes, all the activist leadership, all the initiative and innovation, all the philanthropy we can generously bring to advance life-saving research, lifting up the oppressed and deepening artistic expressions of all kinds, none of these great and good contributions will earn us the world's favor or even solve the problem of Jew hatred. And fourth, Stephens says, what we need now is not the sympathy of the world or the acceptance of other minorities at the table of the oppressed. Rather, we need to, quote, build our own table. That is, invest in Jews and in the future of vibrant Jewish life. It's worth a listen. Bret Stephens' 35-minute address is a good conversation starter with Jews and non-Jews alike. Perhaps it already made its way to your Shabbat dinner table last night. While I agree with a number of the things that Stephens said, and while I disagree with a number of the things that he said, what was most frustrating for me was not what he said, but what he did not say. There was no message that I could find of Judaism. Stephens' State of World Jewry address said a lot about diaspora Jewry and Jewishness, but not much about Judaism. And that's not surprising, given that he spoke at the 92nd Street Y rather than at a synagogue. Not surprising, as he spoke as a journalist and not as a rabbi. But here we are in a synagogue on Shabbat, so this rabbi would like to expand the conversation. First, I would admit that I found an unattractive tone in Stephens' address, teaching his audience, recommending to Jews everywhere that we should care less. Care less about what others think of you. Care less about what others say about you. Care less about others, period. I find this to be offensive and even dangerous and not very Jewish at all. Judaism teaches us to care more about the stranger, to care more about the one who is different than you are, certainly to care more and more about your family, the Jewish people. It doesn't mean give your self-worth over to others to measure for us, no. Instead, hold your head high and do what you know is right. Some have asked me if I regret the refugee relief work that this congregation took up in such a beautiful way during the Syrian war, bringing Muslim and Yazidi refugees to this country under our watch, under our care. I don't regret it for a minute, because it was our mitzvah to carry. We didn't do it so that they would love us. We did it so that we would be more lovable in the eyes of God. In the words of the prophet Micah, God has told us what is good. Adam, listen, you human being. You know what the Eternal One wants of you, only to do justice, to love goodness, and to walk modestly with your God. So let us find dignity in that. Let our self-definition and our self-worth come not from what other folks may or may not say about us. Let it come directly from what we do with our God-given life. Let us care more about the world, care more about putting our God-given talents and potentials to use, and dedicating our best efforts to fulfilling God's wish for us and for the world. Under the unbearable strain of the last 2.5 years, I've heard Israelis say two conflicting things at the very same time, and I understand it. They say, we cannot concern ourselves with what the world thinks of us. At the end of the day, we have to do what we know is right. They're not going to say what they want. At the end of the day, they're going to say what they want, they're going to believe what they want, they're going to deny what they want, no matter what. And so we just have to keep our eyes on what is in front of us. And yet at the same time, I hear Israelis noticing every little headline about what every country of the world has to say about them. They care very much about the world of public opinion. They are acutely aware that they are part of the world. One of the goals of Zionism, after all, was to finally be part of the family of nations, to be normalized in the eyes of the world through statehood, to no longer be the wandering Jews, forever guests in other people's countries, but to provide for ourselves. It should be okay. It should be all right for the world to have one sliver of land assigned for the Jewish people to share with others. I don't think that's asking too much. Instead of focusing on Jews and Judaism and the covenant, Stephen seemed to focus his address on those who hate Jews and Judaism and the covenant. Missing from his address was a word of Torah. If he's serious about investing in meaningful and substantial Jewish education, I wonder why he didn't anchor his address in some source of Jewish wisdom. So, with the Torah in our hands and just moments ago ringing in our ears, let's fill that gap with just a word or two from our parsha. It was, after all, the dramatic telling of the theophany, the retelling of the events at Mount Sinai, when we entered into that eternal and glorious covenant between God and the Jewish people, when Torah was given and received in love. According to chapter 19 of the book of Exodus, there were no angels' wings, no angels' chorus, no hallelujah at Sinai. Instead, there was thunder and lightning and smoke and the blast of the shofar. The mountain trembled, and so did we. At the foot of the mountain, there was awe and reverence at best. There was gripping fear at worst. Only later do we experience the daily giving and receiving of Torah as an expression of unending love between God and the Jewish people. Ahavat olam, ahava rabbah. But at Sinai, it was terrifying. Let me lift up one key verse. Vayotze Moshe et ha'am. Moses led the people out of the camp towards God, and they took their place betachtit hahar. At the foot of the mountain is the common translation, but more literally, betachtit hahar means they took their place under the mountain. How could we take our place under the mountain? Our sages construct many midrashim, many conflicting midrashim, to imagine how it could have been so. I'll share just two with you now. The most famous among them is repeated in Midrash Tanchuma and Masechet Shabbat of the Talmud. It describes the terrifying life of the Jewish people. Rav Avdimi Bar Chana Bar Chama Bar Chassa said, the Jewish people actually stood under the mountain because the Holy One, blessed be God, lifted the mountain up and turned it upside down, inverted it over the heads of the Israelites like a barrel or a tub, and said to us, if you accept the Torah, very well, but if not, this will be your grave. The argument of Rav Acha Bar Yaakov is then recorded saying, if this is how it went down, if this is how it happened, then Torah was only accepted under duress. And everyone knows that by Jewish law, one is not accountable for commitments made under coercion. That is, the Jewish people can lawfully claim that we were under threat of death when accepting Torah, and it is therefore not binding upon us or our children. But then finally, Rava steps in and comes to the rescue with a surprising teaching. He says, even if Torah was originally accepted under duress at Sinai, the Jewish people accepted it all over again and freely during the time of Ahasuerus in Persia. As it is written in Megillat Esther, the Jews took it upon themselves, willingly, upon their descendants too, and upon all those who choose to join them, that is, anyone who chooses to become Jewish. The Torah teaches these covenantal scenes are sequential and progressive as Jewish history unfolds. First, at Sinai, we accepted Torah out of fear. It was a dangerous circumstance. And only centuries later in Persia, we accept Torah all over again out of our own free will. These two scenes can be read not in historical sequence, but rather as two frames imposed on one another. Simultaneously, they happen all the time for each one of us in any given day of our lives. Torah and the moral codes that are imposed upon us lead us to life that is sometimes fearful and sometimes prideful, sometimes terrifying and sometimes so joyful, like today, you could weep. The mitzvot have been put upon our shoulders, and sometimes we feel the weight of them. And other days we claim them for ourselves, and we give them meaning and purpose, and they give meaning and purpose to our lives in turn. When we are lucky, depending on the time and place, we may find that we do not carry the mitzvot. No, they carry us. Now, a lesser midrash about this idea of under the mountain, tachtit hahar, takes a verse from all the way over in Shir HaShirim. In Song of Songs, it is lifted up and placed into Mechilta de Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, saying that Sinai was not a threatening place. The world is not a threatening place. Sinai was a loving place, and the world ought to be a loving place too. Torah is not a burden, but an expression of love and a treasured gift given and received. In Shir HaShirim, in Song of Songs, there is that biblical love poetry, Yonati, my dove, set in the cranny place of the rock, hidden by the cliff. Please let me see your face. Please let me hear your voice. For your voice is sweet and your face is beautiful. The rocky place, that cleft in the rock, that was Sinai, the rabbis say. A place where we took shelter. When that mountain was held over us by the Holy One, blessed be God, it wasn't a threat, God forbid. No, it was a way of providing shelter from life's storms. And there we huddled together, not for survival, but for unity and shared purpose and common cause, a common calling. And God says, lift up your face, let me see you. Lift up your voice, let me hear you. And we said, Na'aseh v'nishma. We will do it, and we will come to understand. I guess I didn't love Stephen's address because I don't want to talk about anti-Semitism. I want to talk about Torah, and I want to talk about the eternal covenant. I don't want to talk about the threats from the outside. I want to talk about our intentions from the inside. I don't want to talk about them. I want to talk about us. And I want to talk about us and the world. No one ever said that being a Jew would be easy. There are days when the mitzvot weigh heavily on our shoulders. The rabbis are honest about that. They say you should feel it. It's important to feel the weight of the mitzvot sometimes. Like when visiting a hospital or making a shiva call or giving tzedakah until you feel the pinch. That's okay. But being a Jew must not be dangerous. It is the responsibility of any and every good country. Just like we prayed moments ago, it is the responsibility of every good government to keep its Jewish citizens safe. It is the responsibility of law enforcement and intelligence services and courts and judges to protect Jewish citizens and all citizens from anyone who might wish us harm. And it is the responsibility of good citizenry, of all backgrounds and all heritages, to do the same. Perhaps not because they love us, not because they know us necessarily, but because they love their own democracy and they love their own country and they want to protect it from harm and harmful forces. Where I differ from Stevens, I think, is that when I go to elected officials or to other faith groups, I tell them anti-Semitism is not a Jewish problem. I don't tell them I don't care about it. I do feel I must address it. But it's not a Jewish problem, and we can't fix it. We will help you as best we can, but it is not our problem to solve. I prefer the language of today's Torah portion, and I prefer the language of our patriarch. When we are first introduced at the very beginning to Avram, God says, I will make of you a great nation. I will bless you. I will make your name known, and you shall be a blessing. V'hayeh bracha. I will bless those who bless you and curse those who curse you, and then all the families of the earth will bless themselves by you. So let's be a blessing to the world, to our neighbors of all kinds, not to win their favor, but to be a blessing, full stop. All the peoples of the world will come to bless themselves by us. We do this not to win their favor, but to be a blessing to the world, full stop. Not to show ourselves to be superior in any way, God forbid, but to show humanity what being human looks like, even when it is hard, even under duress. To believe truly that every human being is created in the image of God and to live accordingly, even when it comes with risk, even when it comes at a price. And finally, where Stevens and I agree is that Jewish life is worth living, that the Brit, the covenant which we celebrate and reinforce today, and those who uphold the covenant generation after generation, ledor vador, you are worthy of our care and protection. The covenant itself is worthy of our care and protection. It is worthy of investing our time and our talents and our treasure. And so let us respond in the words of Isaiah, the prophet. We heard about him in our Haftarah. We listened and we heard the voice of God asking, whom shall I send out into the world? Who will go on my behalf, God asks. And we answer simply, Hineni, here I am, shlacheni, go ahead, send me. Amen.